You are Locked On Wolves POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Wolves Bucks was a great way to cap off a fun weekend at Target Center for the Minnesota Timberwolves, despite a first half scare. As Anthony Edwards and the crew take down the Giannis-less Bucks 103-100. The Wolves are now 9-2 since that 3-game losing skid leading into Thanksgiving. What's going on? Back at it tonight for another Wolves postcast right here on the Locked On Minnesota Network, all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, which, thanks to all of you, is now the number one sports podcast network nationwide. I'm Jack Borman, flying solo tonight without my co-host Luke Inman, who normally joins us, is enjoying a well-earned holiday break. This is our live reaction show. So we are going live within 10, 15 minutes of every game going final. So if you are listening on the Locked On Wolves or Locked On Minnesota podcast version of this show, please be sure to check us out on YouTube when we go live on the Locked On Wolves or Locked On Minnesota YouTube channel. Please subscribe so you get notified when we do go live. And also please go give our guy Ben Beacon a follow. Does a great job hosting the Locked On Wolves daily show on the Locked On Wolves YouTube and the Locked On Wolves audio feeds wherever you get your podcasts. So we'll get into our player of the game, our turning point, our X factor, and what we'll be talking about. But first, off the top, the Bucks are coming into tonight 1-4 in their last 5 games, rocking the worst net rating in the NBA, minus 12.7. All of those games without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who is out tonight. While Mike Conley and Jalen Clark returned for the Wolves this evening. Mike after a 4-game absence with Achilles tendinopathy, and Jalen Clark after missing Friday's game with an illness. Starting out tonight, Bucks played a lot of zone in that first half that stagnated the Wolves offense. They shot 6 of 20 to start the game. Minnesota missed their first 13 three-point attempts before Dante DiVincenzo broke the seal at the 7:17 mark of the second quarter. Made 2 in a row, actually. So the Wolves, at that point had only 25 points through the first 16 minutes. Dante does a great job, helps the Minnesota offense break through. And Anthony Edwards, too, was struggling with that zone. He got to the free throw line at a really high rate in that first half, shot 7 of 10 from the free throw line in that first half, but also shot just 3 of 14 overall from the field. And so the Wolves found themselves in a hole entering the halftime break by a score of 60-48, but came back out in the second half. Looked pretty lethargic in that second half. Chris Finch benched Julius Randle less than 2 minutes, or about 2 minutes into that third quarter, in favor of Naz Reid. The Wolves then go on a 21-2 run to take their first lead of the game at 71-68. Teams kind of traded shots for the rest of the third quarter before the Wolves bench exploded to open the fourth quarter. And then, kind of built a 7-point lead before Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert came in to help slam the door. So big picture for the Timberwolves in this game. I think it was good for them to be able to see a heavy dose of zone defense. It's not something that they have seen a lot of this season. Again, people seeing that the Bucks were playing 2-3 zone defense against them might have left with some PTSD from last year in Milwaukee when the Bucks overcame a 25-point fourth quarter deficit on the back of that zone. And the Timberwolves again had an offensive rating of 60 against zone defense in that game last year against Milwaukee. That's per synergy, and it looked very much that way in the start of this game, the first quarter and a half. But overall this season, the Timberwolves have an offensive rating of 119.6 against zone defense, which is third best in the NBA. So this is not a team that's faced a lot of zone. They've faced the 8th fewest possessions of zone defense in the NBA this season, just 1.7% of their trips down the floor. So I thought it was good for the Timberwolves to get some experience, having a wrench kind of thrown at them, putting their offensive plans, and certainly they were prepared for it, given that Milwaukee did this to them last season. I'm sure that was all part of the scout that the Timberwolves coaching staff had. But the one bummer in this game, Jaden McDaniels left after just 9 minutes with left hip pain, is what the team is calling it. He came out early in the first quarter. Naz Reid checked in for him, not his normal rotation. Looked really uncomfortable walking off the court, grabbing his left side, walked back to the locker room, came back out, started the second quarter. Tried to give it a go, and it just wasn't happening for him. So certainly it's tough timing, considering that Jalen Brunson, who just had 40-plus points tonight for the Knicks, will be here on Tuesday night, and then the Wolves will be in Denver on Christmas night on Thursday to take on Jamal Murray, which has been a thorn in the Timberwolves side and not one that Jaden McDaniels will need. So if Jalen Clark is healthy and feeling good from his sickness, I think they'll certainly rely upon him if Jaden is not able to go in this game. But again, I think it'll be interesting to see what the Timberwolves do rotation wise without Jaden. Mike Conley started the second half, presumably to kind of keep Bones Highland in that bench gunner role that he's been playing and continued to play that in the second half, which leads us in perfectly here to our player of the game tonight.
This is the Locked On Player of the Game.
I'm going to cheat a little bit for tonight's player of the game, and I'm giving it to the entire Wolves bench because I don't really know that there was one player that was ultimately deserving of player of the game when you look at this one in its totality. But for the Wolves, 7 bench points in the first half. They couldn't throw it in the ocean in the first half. Nobody had more than 1 score in that first half, and then 4 guys played really important roles in the second half tonight, which was great to see. Mike Conley. We'll start with him. He had 6 points, 6 assists, 5 rebounds, 2 blocks for the old man, 1 steal, and was a plus 16 in 24 minutes. I thought he just played a really important role in that third quarter as a guy that has a lot of experience playing alongside these starters. Flowed into some pick and roll with Rudy Gobert, which was helpful to get Rudy involved. He had another monster game tonight. Rudy did 18 rebounds, which I believe is a season high for him. It's his 5th straight game with at least 12 rebounds and his 3rd game in his last 4 with at least 14. So, good to see Mike kind of help get Rudy involved offensively, and then also helped get Naz Reid going in that third quarter, which we'll talk about later. Bones Highland again. I love the Bones plays with no fear. Like Bones is going to give up, have a few defensive letdowns that Chris Finch was visibly frustrated by tonight. But again, I just think his ability to create off the ball by himself, whether it's in that pick and roll game, pitching it with Rudy in the dribble handoff or coming around screens, or his ability to just break down a defender and score in the mid-range, I think is really important. And for Bones, had 9 points, 4 assists in 19 minutes. I think for your third guard off the bench, second guard, third point guard in the rotation, I think that's great for him. And then TJ Shannon, 11 points on 7 shots, a great kind of comeback game for TJ after really struggling here of late since that monster output he had on Oklahoma City on perfect shooting a few weeks ago. He absolutely blew the lid off of Target Center in the fourth quarter. We'll get to him a little bit later as well. Bones and TJ scored the first 14 points for the Timberwolves in that fourth quarter. And the Wolves won 19-12 in the non-Ant minutes. So Ant, Dante DiVincenzo, and Rudy Gobert all came back in with a 7-point lead with a little bit more than 6 minutes left. So for them to be able to just allow their best players to close it out and not have to stress too hard. Thankfully Ant had that really nice layup with, to kind of put the game away as the shot clock was expiring late in the game. But again, what you want from your bench, if your bench can extend leads when you've got a starting 5 that is consistently up there with, the best, 2, 3, 4 starting lineups by net rating in the NBA, that's going to be a huge win for your team. And again, for the Wolves bench, the key stat tonight, 7 points in the first half, 31 bench points in the second half. Bones, TJ, and Naz all had at least 7 points in the second half, which was nice to see that they kind of made up for not having a great first half themselves. But that kind of leads us into tonight's turning point.
Time to reveal where the game was won or lost. It's the turning point.
Yeah, so for tonight's turning point, we obviously got to go to the third quarter, right? I think coming out of the locker room, Chris Finch probably and the rest of the coaching staff, some of the veterans, Mike Conley, Joe Ingles, probably tore into this team for their effort in the first half. I thought that they looked like they wanted to be anywhere except Target Center, which is pretty hard to believe considering that they're in the midst of a 5-game road stand, coming off their best and most important win of the season on Friday night against the Thunder. And it did not start well in the second half. The Timberwolves looked very lackadaisical, and Julius Randle was unfortunately at the center of that. Had a really bad turnover on just kind of a rainbow pass, and then just dribbled the ball up before the next possession and took a pretty poor shot in terms of shot quality, shot decision making. that was a step back going right in the mid-range that missed horribly, and Chris Finch had seen enough. He pulled Julius Randle at the 9:51 mark with the Wolves down 66-50. So they were down 16 at that point. Naz Reid comes in the game, and what does he do? He makes a corner three-point shot on the very first offensive possession that he's in the game, which was very important, just to kind of get things going for the Wolves offense that had really struggled for the majority of the night to up until this point. And then that ignites a 21-2 Timberwolves run. And Naz was a really important part of that, right? Naz had 9 points in the next 5 minutes, again, which, was a bigger total than the entire Timberwolves bench had in all of the first half. And so I think for Naz, it just completely shifted the energy, right? I mean, you look at the box score tonight for Naz, it's not super impressive. 12 points on 12 shots, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, but he was a plus 17, and it certainly felt that way. And I think another thing that you have to consider when, kind of remembering some of these plays and what was a turning point. And for me, I'm fortunate enough to be on media row in every game and be at Target Center and feel the energy in the arena. And when certain guys start playing well, the crowd just takes to them in a way that you can't really describe. It's hard to describe, but every single Naz Reid bucket is just louder than anyone else scoring except for Anthony Edwards. And I think it just completely shifted the energy of this game. And I think you got to give Chris Finch credit for, the way that he was willing to go to Naz Reid on a night that Julius Randle just really did not have it. 12 points on 9 shots. He did have 7 rebounds, which is important. But now the second game in a row where Julius has been a little out of a rhythm. So hopefully that's something that Julius can improve upon against his former team, the New York Knicks, on Tuesday. But yeah, again, another strong game from Naz Reid and the Timberwolves bench in that third quarter. Was a ton of fun for anybody in the building here at Target Center or watching it on TV. Tonight's show is brought to you by Robinhood. Nobody knows your money goals better than you. Robinhood puts you in control of your money with tools that work as hard as you do. Locking in on every opening, beating your PR, beating it again. Channel that drive into your money. Robinhood puts you in control of your money. Trade stocks and ETFs, options, futures, and crypto. All in one platform. You can now build and execute your own trades from a desktop with Robinhood Legends advanced tools. Or take advantage of the new Robinhood strategies with a tailored portfolio managed by a team of experts. You expect more from yourself, expect more from your money. Get started today at robinhood.com/yourmoney. Again, that's robinhood.com/yourmoney. Your money, your move. Today's show is also brought to you by FanDuel. NFL Sundays move fast. One big play and suddenly everything feels different. That's what makes live betting with FanDuel so exciting. You're not just watching the game, you're reacting to it in real time. With FanDuel, you can place bets as the action unfolds. Every drive, every momentum swing, every highlight moment. Live betting is the best when the game starts to shift. A receiver gets hot, a defense tightens up, or the momentum flips after a turnover. FanDuel lets you jump into the moment with live spreads, money lines, and player props that adjust instantly. Maybe Justin Jefferson scores a first quarter touchdown against the Lions next week, and you'll think he'll score another. So you bet his live 2+ touchdown props. Or Jahmyr Gibbs rips off a big run, but you think Brian Flores and the boys lock in. So you bet Gibbs's under rushing prop. So if you want to be right in the middle of the action this season, visit FanDuel.com and place your NFL live bets all season long. FanDuel, the game moves fast, and so can you. All righty. Let's get into tonight's X Factor.
It's time to reveal who made the biggest under-the-radar impact with today's X Factor.
Yeah, for tonight's X Factor, I got to go with Terrence Shannon Jr., TJ Shannon. For TJ, I think, again, scored nine of his 11 points in the fourth quarter, like I mentioned earlier. He and Bones Highland combined for the first 14 points the Timberwolves scored in the fourth quarter. Certainly the type of bench punch that this team needs coming out of a fourth quarter, carrying some of that momentum forward from the third quarter, which is obviously very important. And again, I think with TJ, somewhat similarly to Naz, a lot of his points are very loud points, which is important. And I think the fans taking really kindly to when TJ plays well and is able to make his highlight plays, whether it's a big dunk, getting out in transition, are knocking down, big threes tonight, right? He had a couple of a slot three and a couple of corner threes tonight. Was really important playing against his zone defense that is going to give him those shots. I think the Bucks really were trying to keep the ball out of the corners so that the Wolves couldn't drive the baseline and then, have dump off plays in front of the rim to Gobert or Naz Reid or whomever the case may be. So for TJ to be able to knock down those shots is super important. And TJ is a confidence player, I think, as we all have come to see on the last couple of seasons, and he can put them up in bunches, right? We saw it tonight. We've seen it, several times last season into the playoffs and earlier this season, most notably against Oklahoma City. And for a player like that, it's tough when, you try to play through an injury at the start of the season, you miss a bunch of games, you come back, then your role in the rotation is a little bit inconsistent. So for TJ, I think, again, it's kind of a tough spot for him in the sense that he's basically the guy who decides whether this is a really good bench or kind of a mediocre one. I shouldn't necessarily say decides, but his play can lift them up to be a really good bench or maybe bring them down to be, one that's more middle of the pack or below average. So I think for TJ, it's just going to be really important for him to be able to kind of carry some of this confidence forward. And I think he's a player that Chris Finch wants to give minutes to because of the way that he can impact the game, not only offensively, but he plays really quickly. And I think the pace that he plays with, trying to create transition opportunities, is really important. And he's shown that he can be a really competitive rebounder too. So solid is enough defensively. If you can bring down that foul rate a little bit, impact things on the glass, I think we'll see some really good things to come in the future here for TJ. Other quick topics tonight, just to look at the rotation a little bit with Mike Conley back, Jalen Clark back. So like I said earlier, Naz Reid entered this game early for Jaden McDaniels, who normally plays the entirety of the first quarter, has for most of this season, but sometimes when he's matching up with other stars, he'll mirror their minutes, maybe come out a little bit early in the first quarter and then start the second quarter. And then TJ and Bones, respectively, were the 7th and 8th men tonight. And then Mike Conley started the second quarter. So that meant that Rob Dillingham was out of the rotation. And then Jalen Clark entered for just a couple of minutes at the, around the 8-minute mark of the second quarter, played briefly again there in the second half. So it was a 10-man rotation, really down to 9, with Jalen Clark only playing 6 minutes. But, if Jaden's not able to go, I'd imagine that they'll need him to play more minutes against Jalen Brunson and Jamal Murray coming up here in the next few games. So pretty clear that I think Chris Finch wants to go with Naz and TJ and Bones in every game. And then whether it's Mike or Jalen Clark, however the case may be, I think that's just how things are going to be. But it's pretty clear to me that Chris Finch is prioritizing, those 3 guys above everyone else. And then I think Mike is just kind of the if someone's out, maybe he's the guy that steps up into more minutes as the 9th man off the bench. So another one tonight, Rudy Gobert grabbed his 10,000th rebound in the first quarter of this game, 45th player in NBA history to do so. The overwhelming majority of the other 44 above him are in the Hall of Fame. He's certainly going to be in the Hall of Fame, I believe, with 4 Defensive Player of the Years. So that is 5th most among active players for Rudy Gobert. So great to see Rudy kind of get his shot in front of the arena, and what was another monster game for him. I mean, fitting that he had 18 rebounds in this game. He's done a much better job of late too, grabbing rebounds instead of tapping them, and just playing with an edge and a physicality of doing the dirty work that I think has been kind of inspiring some of his other teammates to do the same on the defensive end of the floor. So yeah, got to give a big shout out to Rudy Gobert for the way that he's been playing. Again, another fantastic game for him. And I'm glad for his sake that the Timberwolves kind of got their stuff together in the second half and joined him to close this one out.
This is what you'll be talking about.
Yeah, tonight, coming off this game tonight and into tomorrow, what I think we'll be talking about, can this be the game that can turn the tide for 2 pretty choppy seas that the Timberwolves have been sailing this season, right? Losing games against far inferior opponents without stars. Like I said, the Bucks came into this game with the last 5, 1-4, bottom 5 in offensive rating, bottom 5 in defensive rating, bottom 5 in turnover rate, bottom 5 in points in the paint, second chance points, fast break points, you name it. They've been really bad. And I think for them to struggle the way they did was a little bit concerning, but you got to give them credit for the way that they bounced back. I think just trying to get into more of these games is going to be really important, showing that they can just get up for them. can be tough over the course of 82 games, especially when you're coming off back-to-back Western Conference Finals appearances. So I think, getting into, especially at home, right, especially with some of these bench guys fighting for roles, fighting for minutes, they're going to bring it. And I think the Wolves starters kind of need to lean on their bench a little bit more for some of that, like we saw tonight. So hopefully that can continue. And like I said, the second one is just consistent bench production, right? Timberwolves 31.6 points per game off the bench this season. That's 26th in the NBA. Thankfully, they have an awesome starting lineup that's been able to buoy them. But again, I think the talent on this bench is certainly there and capable of being able to not only sustain leads, but extend them when Anthony Edwards and Rudy Gobert are not on the floor. So look for those two things to hopefully finally, I sound like a broken record saying this all year, but hopefully we can look back at this game as an inflection point. So thank you guys all for joining me solo here tonight. Really appreciate it. We will be back here on Tuesday night. Might have Sam Ekstrom with me for that one against the New York Knicks. And then we'll be back on Christmas night on Thursday. So please join us then as well after they play the Denver Nuggets to close out a Christmas Day slate. So thank you guys very much. Please subscribe to the show on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. Also check out our guy Ben Beacon on the Locked On Wolves pod. And we'll see you guys on Tuesday. Appreciate it.